where it's one. There we go. So we're all ready. Welcome everyone to the January 14th, 2025 Winnipeg Researchers and UFO Experiencers. We are lucky tonight, and it seems to be incredibly lucky because it seems that she's been dodging us, doing things like even breaking her leg to get away from us. But tonight she showed up, and she's a little under the weather, but she still said, "I'm not passing tonight." So Desta, Barnabe, our guest tonight, welcome. And why don't you tell everybody how you're feeling these days and how things are going with your leg? Because I know everybody was asking me, and you might as well tell them.
Well, thank you everyone for being here. Nice to see everyone's smiling faces. Yeah, I just the day before November's UFO Experiencer meetup, I just tripped down the stairs and ended up twisting, thought I just twisted my ankle and ended up being in the hospital for a week. And I ended up breaking my leg in 3 places and required surgery. And I have been in bed ever since that day. So today is the first day I'm even in this office for more than maybe 15 minutes. So sitting up, I have my my big air cast on, and hopefully I won't be fidgeting around too much and having to take it off or move around. But it's been a struggle, but I'm so happy to be here. I wouldn't have missed it.
And we're thrilled to have you, Desta. I know we've known each other for quite a few years now, and through Grant Cameron, I met you through, who I know you're still working with and working on some of his books. And you also have one of your own books. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your own book and where people, and I think we put it in the chat where you can actually buy it.
Sure.
I think that's in there.
I sent it to Betty. If she didn't already get it, I'm sure she'll just be getting it. But it's on Amazon, amazon.ca or .com or whatever. It's oh, I didn't realize that the waiting room. But I have 2 books that I wrote myself. They're just books on channeling. And I just did revised copies of both of them actually. So I added some new content and changed the covers and added a little bit more stuff, re-edited it and formatted it and just made them a little bit nicer, since I've learned a lot in my formatting and publishing book days. So I wanted to just make them a little bit better. And we have a channel, my fiance and I have a channel called Mysteria Luna. It is like a YouTube channel where we do videos and we do a lot of AI art and just UFO stories, or some kind of paranormal stories. And because we generate so much art, we started doing new covers for books. So I've redone some of the covers of Grant's old books, and we're just like republishing stuff just because it's, we got fresh new ideas and new nice images to put on the books. So I have 2 books on channeling, and I co-wrote a book called Contact Modalities with Grant. And that book is also has parts of it that are on channeling, but it's mostly contact modalities, like different ways that you can like talk to the other side, whether that's through channeling or remote viewing or using a Ouija board or dowsing, or there's hundreds of different ways to do it. And it's all the different tools you can use to do them, like a Ouija board or tarot cards or whatever. And it talks a lot about the kind of state of mind to get into. So the way that Grant explains it, and the way that we really focused on that book in explaining it, is in a left brain, right brain kind of way, where you get the concept of like your left analytical brain is the thing that you need to turn off when you're trying to tune in to any of these altered states of consciousness or trance-like states or whatever, where then you can tune in to whether it's mediumship and talking with, deceased loved ones, or dowsing, so you can figure out what supplements to take, or map dowsing to find your lost pet or something, or any of these kind of things. So that's what that book is. And then my 2 books are just on channeling and just messages that I've gotten through channeling.
So when did you when did you discover you had the gifts? I realize that all people have the gifts, but when have you refined it enough, or when did you realize that you're taking it far enough? Was it early in your life that you felt something? Maybe discuss how you got to that point. How did you realize that, hey, there's something different here am I the only person, dealing with this, or what can you tell us about that?
I've talked to many hundreds probably of experiencers, so my story maybe is not quite the same, where when I was young, I really grew up in a family that was very open to these kind of ideas. So I was never, like a lot of people are, you know, if they kind of feel like they have gifts, they have to shut them down because of religious views or different belief systems that their family have. I did not have that experience. My dad had a near-death experience when he was a kid, and my grandma was a medium, and she had a haunted house. And all people in my family and friends of my family who passed, my grandma always knew the day before they passed that they were going to, and then she always claimed at least that they moved into my grandparents' house for a bit because they used to have a lot of parties, and there was a very social environment in my grandparents' house. And so they had a lot of people over a lot and would, like have lots of gatherings. So I think my grandma always thought that it was since she was gifted psychically, that they would feel, and that they knew that all of her friends and family knew that she was. I think that when a lot of people passed, that was just like a very comfortable atmosphere and environment for these people to go to, because my grandma, if they needed to give a message, would be able to take the message, as well as they were used to being at my grandparents' house, partying or drinking or, chatting or being around each other. So I was fascinated with that when I was a kid, and terrified, obviously, as well. I loved the stories, but I was terrified of my grandparents' house and seeing a ghost. It was traumatizing, but I was very interested in it and always heard the stories. And my grandma did tarot cards and palm reading and astrology and stuff. So I learned all those kind of things when I was very young, like maybe 10 or 11 or 12, 13, I knew how to do all those kind of things. So I had a lot of experiences, out of body experiences, seeing UFOs, like whatever, when I was a kid. And so I was more comfortable with it because I was used to hearing about it, and it wasn't strange. And had all the, Dr. Raymond Moody books when I was whatever, 11 or 12 or whatever. So Life Between Lives and Life After Life and everything. I knew about things like that. So I don't know if there was ever a set time that I knew that I could do anything. It was just very comfortable to me, to hearing about those subjects, and I was really interested in them. So I wasn't freaked out when something weird would happen. If I thought I saw a moving light in the sky, I would like say to everyone, like, look, it's a UFO, who knows if it was or not, especially when I was younger. But my friends all knew that I knew about ghost stories and, Ouija boards and stuff like that. And so I wasn't shunned or made fun of or anything when I was a kid. So it was really open. So I don't know if I ever knew if I ever had abilities, because a lot of the things I was doing, tarot cards and palm reading and stuff like that, it's not necessarily an ability. I just studied it. So I memorized the tarot cards. I knew all the lines in the palm. I knew all the astrology. So I didn't think that that was anything weird, because anyone could, remember those things. And, so it wasn't until really, I would say about 2015, when a different thing happened, which is when I started channeling. And that was actually something that I also did kind of teach myself in a way. I didn't take a class or anything. But I wasn't surprised by it. I didn't see, dead people walking around my house or anything when I was young. So I did kind of learn all these things and try and hone the skills. And I'm still to this day doing that, just in different ways. And since I was 18, I really have taken so many I don't know if I'm supposed to be looking, I'm looking at the side chat at the same time, so I'll answer questions if I see them, or Mark or Betty, if you guys want to do it, but I can see it, so I have no problem looking at it as well. But, so yeah, so I learned how to channel when I was, or when in 2015, I was doing, a QHHT course and a lucid dreaming course, an astral travel course at the same time. And I kind of fell in, it's a long story, but I kind of started being able to hear messages, and it took years of doing it all the time, daily almost, to be able to, be where I'm at obviously today. But I still do it, and I take tons of courses, and I'm in the middle of writing a couple books right now, and the theme of the books is that it's my belief, and even in Contact Modalities, Grant and I wrote about this, that I kind of really think that there is only one way, in my opinion, of all these different psychic abilities. Like, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's mediumship or channeling or remote viewing or psychometry or whatever, dowsing. I think it's because I've taken so many of these courses now, but I think none of the courses need to be taken, that there's only one way to do it. And it is really the meditation way, where if you quiet your mind enough and if you can hone in on that skill of quieting the mind, then any one of those things you can do. It doesn't matter what it is. And after spending probably at least $10,000 in taking all these different classes, I've realized that different people have different protocols and different ways to do it. But I don't believe that that's the case. I believe that if you can get to that place in your mind where you can, quiet your mind enough, then any of those things that you can do, it's basically all, within reach, because I get to that same place just by getting to that, quiet space in your mind, or whatever you want to say. And I can do any of those things from that same place. So in the books, I'm trying to put that across to people, that instead of spending, 20 years and taking 50 different courses and spending $10,000, you can do all those things from the same place. It's just figuring out how to focus your mind enough, and that's the place where the magic happens.
Fascinating. I mean, you touched on a lot of topics there, Desta, and just going back to your family and the idea of such a diverse, from near-death experience to, all the channeling to haunted houses to the whole plethora of different issues. So one of the things that which is very, very interesting. I mean, I know a lot of there's generational relationships between ET connections, that type of thing. I've heard quite a bit about that. But you had mentioned something about voices. And so whose voice is it? Is it a guide? Is it the creator? How would you describe you're getting voices? Who are these voices or voice?
Okay, so the way that I do it is, so I use channeling. I call it channeling, and I get voices actually sometimes, but it's not normally in voices. It's so hard to really explain channeling, but it's not just voices. That would be so easy, because it would just be a voices coming in, I'm typing it. So that's what I normally do, typing it. When I started channeling, I was writing it, and I was getting very few words and very slowly, and only a couple words at, like, every minute I would get maybe 3 words. And so the way I was writing, it was always like a poem kind of. So I would be meditating, and I would say, is there however I said it in those days, is there a message you can give me, or whatever? Is there anyone there who wants to talk to me? Aside from, obviously, I did, some protection protocols first. I was just open to everything, but, I was kind of just saying, is there a message that you have to give me? And then, so the way, and I would get just a couple words, and then that's it. So it would be my message would be maybe 20 words in sets of 3 or 4, like a poem kind of, or a haiku or something like that. It was really weird. And And from that, it got to be, I was writing so fast that I thought I'm a fast typer. And so I thought, why don't I just close my eyes with my hands on my keyboard and start typing? And that started from sentences to paragraphs to, I could sit here for 4 hours and write, 20 or 40 pages in a night if I wanted to, like if I had the time, I was awake long enough. So and I could speak it, but I hate the playback and hearing my own voice on, like, if you were to, so I've done the audio many times, but I can't stand to play it back. So I don't do it like that. It's just easier just to have it in a Word document and type it, because I publish so many books. I like to see things in that, and I like to use the spell check, and I like to read it, and I like to, when I'm done, go to bed, and I like to have files, it's just like my preferred way. But my specific way of doing it is more like a clairsentient way, where I feel the message. So I don't hear a voice in my head, and I don't know who it is. At the very beginning, when I started doing it, I thought it was my higher self, because I was asking questions and getting information. So I never even thought that it was channeling. I thought I was talking to my higher self, because at the time I was taking a QHHT course, how to be a practitioner. And through that course, you learn how to, regress people, and how to, part of the regression is you end up talking to their higher self. So you say, Mark, can I talk to your subconscious or your higher self? And then, I ask you the list of questions that you provided me of things that you want to know about. But I'm talking to your higher self, and it's your higher self. And when you have the playback, it's also sometimes creepy, because your voice kind of changes too, right? So that's what I wanted to do. So while I was taking that course, other things happened at the same time, but I kind of was trying to figure out the way that I could self-hypnotize myself and get this information from my higher self, instead of having to pay someone $500 every time I wanted to do it. I thought cheaper just to learn the course, figure out the hack. I was like too cheap. I didn't want to have to spend the money.
As well, Desta.
Yes, very. Very. I had gone and spent, I was mad, because it's hundreds of dollars to even, 15 years ago to try and get hypnotized or regressed, and it never worked for me. So I would lie in the person's office, and they would say all the stuff, and they would say, like, okay, now open your eyes, where are you? And I would be like, open my actual physical eyes and be like, I'm in your office. Like, well, what's supposed to happen? Because nothing at all has happened. And they're like, oh, well, I guess you just can't get regressed. So sorry, you're just one of those people that can't get hypnotized. And I'd always be like, oh my God, and they don't give you your money back. So I was like, what a ripoff. Like, how many people go and do this? And I did it quite a few times. And I was so mad at the end that I just thought, I have to learn the course and then figure out if you can self-hypnotize, hypnotize yourself, and then figure out how you can remember, if you talk to your own higher self, like how you bring back that information. So I originally thought I would have to be voice recording myself for hours. And I thought I would have to have a recorder with my own voice doing the actual regression, like to get me down. And then I thought I had to make myself start talking to my higher self. So I had to have another recorder that was recording what I was saying. And I had all these things that I was trying to do to figure out, like, the hack to get around, to be able to figure out what my own higher self was saying. And anyways, long story, that I eventually was doing it in such a theta state of mind that I never remembered what happened when I came out of it. So it would be like right before I would fall asleep, I could spend an hour keeping myself awake and asking all these questions and getting all these answers. But then I eventually would fall asleep. And when I would wake up, I would go, oh my God, I had the craziest, I had all these, but I never remembered one thing. And that happened for months. I never, ever I couldn't bring it back. So I started doing it during the day and just having a nap. And so I would wake up earlier and be able to, and it was a very long process to try figuring it out. So I thought the whole time, when I was finally able to be in the trance state with my pen and paper, and then as soon as I got something, open my eyes and write it down really quick, and then go back into the state, and then open my eyes really quick and write it down. after doing that for a while, I was able to be able to bring more stuff back through that message. And Grant actually was someone who posted on his Facebook that one of his people, actually someone who used to be in our UFO meetup group, Mark, a long time ago, someone that I knew as well. And she was also a QHHT practitioner. She said, you know, Grant's posting all these messages Desta's getting, who are they coming from? And I was like, I just said, well, they're coming from my higher self. Like I'm just doing the thing with my higher self, like through QHHT. And she said, no, it sounds like you're channeling. You should ask next time you do it, who you're talking to. And I never thought it was channeling. I never thought there was people I was talking to. I never perceived it in that way. So then I did start asking, you know, if I'm talking to someone, let me know who you are. And then I started asking questions, which I didn't really know that I could do. I started just saying like, what's the message? What's the message? So anyways, I started getting back responses of beings. You know, I don't know if that's true, if that's who they are, that's, you know, what they're presenting themselves as, but they started answering and giving me that information. But I don't hear the voice in my head. I know that it's coming from a different group because they claim that that's where it's coming from, but I don't hear the messages. I feel a feeling and start having lots of like a string of words that just start coming together. And it always feels to me, it's just like words falling off of a tree limb. I've always been given the impression of a tree. So it's just like, and I'm picking different words. And so a lot of times as the message is coming in and I'm picking different words, I can tell if it's the wrong word. As I'm going through the string of words, like as it's not a good way to teach anyone how to do it, but it's like words are like falling off of like a tree branch, but you know, it's not, and I'm picking the words. And as I'm picking the words, I don't know if it's them making me go back. Sometimes it is, or if it's me going, that's not the word. It's something like that, but it's not that. And it's like, I go through different words until I feel like it fits. And sometimes, and when I'm typing it, sometimes they say, no, that's not the right word, go back. And I have to go back and say, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? And so it's like, so I'm not hearing a voice, I'm feeling words and stringing them together, and they correct me if it's wrong. I don't know who they are. I know who they claim to be. I don't know if it's all really my higher self, or I'm just picking them out of the ether or the, you know, the whatever. I know a lot of people who channel claim to be talking to one person and they're sure it's one person. I've been given the message that that is not true, for me at least. So I don't care really who they are as long as it's a good message. So I don't know if it's important who you're talking to, because a lot of these things say that there's something and they're not. And it doesn't, I think it doesn't really matter who it is. And I think there's a lot of ego involved in, if you start saying, well, I channel Mother Mary, and someone else says that they do, and then these people fight with each other because it's like they're getting different. So it's like, I don't really care who it is, and I'm not trying to prove it to anyone, so it really doesn't matter to me. I just like the message, and then if it ends and they say who they are, and I'll type it, of course, I always exactly verbatim say what the message is, but I don't know that I don't know exactly for sure who it's coming from. But yeah, it's, for me, it's just a feeling. I feel the way the whole thing is going. It's like that telepathy tapes thing we were just talking about, where it's like it's a vibration and I'm interpreting a vibration. So I'm interpreting all of the way that it feels, how it's coming down. And I only know it's wrong if they correct me, or if I know that it feels like it's the wrong set of words, or if like I'm going in there. And sometimes when I start, you can tell when your left brain starts kicking in, and if I start thinking I know what they're saying and I start just typing, it stops and there's no more information, and I have to go back to the place where I started filling in the blanks. Like I learned that a long time ago, that that's how it really is if you just keep, like, you get so excited that you can tell, oh, there's a story and he's saying this and he's saying this. If you just keep going, there is no more, the information stops. Because if there's information coming, you have to, I just think of myself like I'm an interpreter, or like I'm an actual channel, as in like I am a conduit through which the message is coming, and I'm just the interpreter. So I'm just like making that vibration into English words. and writing it down. And yeah, that's how I see it anyway.
So are you, when you start talking about messaging also, do you get, I've had many channelers that provide messages to the masses, like, so do you get those kind of channels as well? Things like, for instance, you were saying earlier that you can instantaneously sort of make that connection. Could you channel a message for us now, for instance?
No, absolutely not. I am so like shy, but like not, the only reason I can do this is because every time I sit down and start doing it, I think no one's ever going to see this. I'm never publishing this. I'm never going to send it to anyone. So just, and it works because I have no like pressure. So a lot of people, I do messages for people. And even though I take this as a psychic skill, no, I'm not a medium. I do have people whose friends or family has passed and they said, can you get a message for me? And if I don't have to do it in front of them, where again, this is, I know a lot about, like say, I have been involved with a lot of people in circles where people have said that there's people that are faking what they're doing. I won't even get into what I'm talking about, but just say like in general, psychic people. And I see the way that one of the problems, I think, when that starts happening, and it happens in the UFO community as well. Actually, and there's people in this group right now who know people that I'm talking about. But so, and I think Grant calls it UFO fever, right? It's like if you're on the spot and you start telling everyone, hey, I can do this, I can do this. And then you start getting a following, like if you're Bashar or something. What happens one time if you can't connect? What happens is a lot of people don't know what to do and they're mortified. And the more that they start being embarrassed or pressured or thinking, holy shit, I have to give everyone's money back, or like, I'm going to look like a fraud, or what am I going to do? You can't connect. And the more that that happens, people fake it. They'll fake it because they're embarrassed that they can't connect that one time. And then that's what happens when people, and so I don't want that to happen. So I have gotten messages for people if they say, please, can you see if there's a message from my sister just passed? And I'll get a message myself and then text it to them or Zoom with them or whatever. And I'll type it and I'll email it to them. But I don't want to take money for doing it and then be put on like have pressure and then do it wrong and then fake it and then be a fraud. That's just like, I have too much experience of seeing other people do that. And so I don't do it like that. So sorry.
So, no, absolutely. That's why you're here. I mean, they're not here to listen to me, I can assure you. So, so you start talking, so general messaging, like whatever, a general message to the mass is not something you would typically do, but have you received messages in the past where humanity's going? Because there's a reason why I want to ask you. I'll follow up with a question after this, but.
Absolutely. I mean, I ask, so the way I do it now, I only do it for specific subjects. I do a lot of psychic investigation work now, so I'm usually asking for missing people and information behind what happened to the missing people. But I also do it like if there's any big things happening in the world. So, excuse me, one of the additions, because I revised my books, one of the additions that I put in one of them was a bunch of messages I was getting in 2020 when there was like, the world was crazy. And I was getting a bunch of messages because I was concerned over what was happening to, humanity in general, just saying, what is, what's happening? Why is there so much divisiveness? Why do so many people, hate each other? How are we going to get through this? What's happening? Like with the 3D, 5D kind of thing. Is that true? The Matrix, I ask about all sorts of crazy things. And, or if there's like big earth changes, like the fires, or, where you feel bad. I feel bad all night and I can't sleep. So then I say, okay, let's just turn this into a channeling session. It's like, why? Like, what's the deal with like, why would so many, people have to be affected? The North Carolina one was a big one. And I did a big channeling about that because it's horrible and devastating. And it's like, why do so many people have to suffer so much all the time? So yeah, I definitely do message like that all the time. I only personally get good messages. I don't know why. I think that the things my guides, or however you want to say it, are, and probably a lot of people who channel, they don't say bad things. Like there's no bad interpretation for them. So no matter what it is, they always say it, they'll always say like this thing is going to end soon, kind of thing. They'll never say why something bad is happening. They'll just say this is just a blip in your radar. It's going to end soon. If it's like the fires or like big hurricanes or big, disasters, it'll say, people need to lean on each other and there's not enough connection in the community, and look at all the good that's happened to this. People lost their house, and then look what happens. Everyone realizes what's important to them. They realize family's the most important. Their belongings are just material items. That's not the important thing. So yeah, so I get messages all the time, just general messages about like, why is this happening? And but basically they're always what you can imagine as being the most positive message, which is just, and I ask about like the earth, Gaia, or whatever you want to call it, all the time too, because I feel bad about stuff like that. And they basically, the messages is always like like the earth is going to survive forever, and you people are not going to be there for very long. So don't waste all your time feeling really bad for all the terrible things that are happening to earth, because she is way more powerful than all you tiny little beings that are only going to be there for 80 years each or whatever. You're not supposed to be focusing on the suffering, right? So you can't feel bad. And we was on one of the groups with you, I think, at one point, and there was a couple people that, and I used to be like that too. When I was young, I was like really bad with like animal suffering and the environment. I was crazy about stuff like that, and I suffered myself a lot. And so I think that's why I care about stuff like that now, and I ask about it, and that's always the message. Like, if you spend all your time worrying and losing sleep and being upset because you can't believe what climate change, however you want to say it, animals dying, young people dying, mass starvation, mass fires, all these things on the animals, when like you see all the animals that are being killed and all these things, it drives me crazy. But the message is always that you can't focus on that kind of stuff, because if you are breaking down and you are not able to, live your life to the fullest and be happy, which is the reason that we're here, to like spread love and happiness and like help each other and stuff. If you're so upset because these things are happening, and then that cycles you into, you start getting sick, the people around you, it's like a bad vibe that hurts yourself and your plants and your pets and the people in your house. It's an energy that you leave behind you when you're in that state of mind that is not good for anything living, but also when you die, it's stuck in your house. And that's why houses need to be cleansed. Plants die, your pets will die. It's a terrible state of mind. So I know that I used to think that, I don't know if I thought I was better than people, but I used to think like I didn't like that other people didn't care as much about animals dying or whatever, suffering, than I did. And I was mad at everyone else for not caring as much as me. But that's not good. And that's not what you're supposed to do. And that's not going to help. And you're not helping the other people, you're not helping the animals, and you're not helping yourself by being like that. So really the point of all that is like, you have to stay positive, and you have to make sure that the things that you're thinking about are positive and uplifting, because that helps all the living things in your life. And it leaves a better environment energetically for you to live in yourself, as well as when you leave this place. But energetic signatures like that don't just stay in your house, they stay everywhere that you go. So you don't want to be dragging around all this baggage of sadness and suffering with you all the time, because you're leaving that everywhere you go, and no one is benefiting from that. Nobody. So yeah. So anyway,
So
that's
yeah, so that's interesting. So before we came on tonight's show, you and I were talking with Betty. By the way, thank you, Betty, for all you do. Is the concept of your thoughts are incredibly powerful. Like I was telling you about manifestation and how I've been working on it and how successful I was with the 5 issues that I challenged. A lot of the people on this show were aware of that I was telling them that I was having incredible success with thought. So the idea that if everything you message you get is positive, you must be in a good space. I mean, you must be putting out those kind of positive vibes, except for the idea of breaking a leg when you want to have some rest because you've been overrun. So
Yeah.
so I'm going to go to the bigger question, because I think a lot of people in this show have talked about this before. But so what is, from your perspective, what is this existence? What is this reality that we are in right now? If you talk about your thoughts are creating your own realities, how would you describe what this actually is that we're all living together and enjoying together?
Oh, that's a huge,
We
that's
got
a
2
huge.
hours, so don't worry about it.
Oh, it's really hard. It's funny because so like I said, my fiance and I have this channel called Mysteria, right? So we do short, like 10-minute scripts on big points that we're interested in. And reality, creating your reality, and what exactly is reality is, we just put out a video on this because I did get a message that's in one of my books from a long time ago. And it's a really crazy, I wouldn't certainly not pretend to know, but like a guess is, is it's something like a matrix. It's definitely not a base reality that we're in. And I think that I spent a long time, I don't know how deep I should go into this, but like, so in the book, Grant and I wrote Contact Modalities. So I'm sure everyone here knows Grant. Obviously, this used to be his group. So like, Contact Modalities is like, so everyone knows Grant also put a book out that was called Breakthrough, the psilocybin school. That is, I don't know if anyone's read that book. That is one of my favorite books of Grant's. Of course, I edited it for him. And it's funny because Grant, before writing that book, so this book is about the psilocybin school, right? So he did 20 or 25, I think, high dose mushroom trips. And it's funny because Grant had never done drugs. He's never smoked. He doesn't hardly ever drink. So for him to go right to 5-gram psychedelic trips was like very hilarious and interesting for me. And so I love that he was doing that because I spent many years also trying to do this. And so some people would call people that do this psychonauts, right? When it's just trying to be able to, I don't even know how to really describe it, but like, so in Contact Modalities, the book, we're trying to teach people how to pierce the veil, right? Or be able to get in contact with the other side. My reason and my most interesting point of why I do this is to figure out what this reality is. That's for me, in the last, say, 10 years, my biggest question is exactly what you just said. Like, what is this? Is it a matrix? Is this just a reincarnation and we reincarnate on different planets and come here and everything is real and physical? Or is this like really a matrix, or is it a programmed reality? Is it a holographic universe? Is this all a hologram? There's so many different ways. A multiverse. What exactly are we doing? How do we go? How do we pierce into these other parallel dimensions or realities or whatever? What is that? And what are the beings on the other side? And so I've spent a long time, quite a few years, where I was just trying to only go out to that other side to bring back and to remember what those other places were, and then like compare them to this one to try to figure out, and if I ever encountered anything there, to like ask, like, if anything knows what this is. And when you ask, are they just reflecting, just like UFO question where it's like aliens, right? Just like Chris Bledsoe or anyone. You say, like, when that being looks to you like an angel, are they reflecting what your belief system is? And do they only look like an angel because you're Christian or Catholic or whatever? And if they look like an ET, is it because you believe in ETs? You know, all that. So it's like, and same with channeling. They say they're Andromedans, but are they, or are they something else? Like, you don't know if they're putting on the act because it's going to make you feel better. They look like your dead grandma to talk to you because you're not going to freak out if they look like your dead grandma. So are these beings lying? Is it all reflective? And they're just reading your mind and doing something to you that you're going to be comfortable with, and you're going to understand what they're doing. And is that even what they really look like? All those things are, in my opinion, exactly questions and information that needs to be understood to figure out what this reality is. So it's like so hard to explain. I have absolutely no idea. But I love the concept of what exactly this nature of reality is. One of the messages and one of the videos we just did was on this thing called the bubble universe, which just 2 days ago when we were putting the video up, Matt said to me, like, is this a real thing, the bubble universe? And I said, no, this is just a stupid channeling I got this vision. It was a room filled with bubbles, and it was like a kabillion bubbles in a room. And what the message was like, your reality is like a bubble surrounded by an infinite number of other bubbles. And so it's like, you know, like the surface area of each bubble is touching, if you think about it in 3D space, you know, like so many other bubbles. And so what it was telling me is just like your whole, the concept and the like physics understandings of your reality, you know, like gravity and like, you know, how your science works, how we look, how we communicate to each other, what the lessons are to learn, all those kind of things is in your universe, which is one bubble. And anytime you try and go beyond that bubble, whether it's to talk to a dead relative or to, you know, call it an alien, call it an ET ship, or any of these psychic abilities to go do anything, to channel, to try and talk to ETs, talk to someone, or try and even like the psychic investigation cases I'm doing, to try to go back in time to see what happened when a person disappeared, and to try and get into the scene of what happened and figure out what happened to the person, what happened as the victim, as the perpetrator, all these kind of things. You're going back in time, like a remote viewing. How does all these things work? And so the concept was, we're in this bubble surrounded by all these other bubbles, and all you're doing by like piercing the veil is pretend the veil is just the bubble. You're just like poking your finger through the bubble, looking into the next bubble, which is the next universe. So maybe that's where the ETs are. That's where their ships come from. Maybe that's where the, you know, anything, the Bigfoot are in this one, the you know, whatever, all the people, once they pass away, they go to this one. And, you know, maybe they go to this one when they're getting ready for the reincarnation to come back to this planet or whatever. Maybe each one of those things are there. And the concept was that if you, the further away from your bubble that you get, so if you're just close to your bubble, it's very similar, you know, it's like very similar. People look the same, they kind of communicate the same. It's kind of like the Mandela effect, how people say it's just like only a couple things are different in this bubble from the next bubble. But when you start going to the other side of the room bubble, then those are things, and I have experienced places like that when I went searching, where it's like, you can't even explain in English. It's impossible to even describe what the people look like, what the purpose of their life is, what, you know, it's like impossible to even wrap your head around and even explain it properly of what's happening over there. It's just like not even in our concept of how things work, how reality works. And so anyways, so I think that, and anyway, so Matt said, look up to see if this bubble universe is a thing. And I'm like, it's not, it's just something I got. And I looked it up and it's a thing, the bubble universe. I didn't know that. It's like, I can't even remember what it said on Google, but it's like, apparently it's a concept, just like, you know, string theory and parallel dimensions and the multiverse, and like how there could be an infinite number of parallel realities going right now. And we're just switching through each one of them. And we give them energy every time we're trying to, you know, every time we think about something that we could be doing, and it doesn't matter what it is, but it's easy to think about it, like when you're young and you're like, you have two boyfriends and you're like, oh, which boyfriend should I go to? And you're like, there's two different people that you're dating or two different people that you like. And it's like, which one do I like better? And then you go out with this guy, this guy. So, and then you pick one guy and you go out with them and you get married to him or whatever. But what happens with the other person, right? What happens with the fact that you've put energy into what might happen if you stuck with this person and ended up marrying this person? Because he's part of the equation too. And this is a co-creation, you know, world we're living in, maybe some people say. So he's putting energy into what would it have been like if she didn't go with that guy. And sometimes you're going back and saying, oh, I wonder what would happen if I was with that guy. So the energy that both people are putting into a reality that never came to fruition, but the possibilities of that. And there's double people now putting energy into that. So some people think that the multiverse is part of that, right? One parallel reality is I did go with that guy and we had kids and we moved to blah, blah, blah and had kids and all this stuff. So that is a parallel reality that you could potentially, through one of these contact modalities or whatever, you could slip into that reality one time, right? Some people have really vivid dreams or maybe just a dream, or you get, you know, into mushrooms and you just are, oh my God, I lived my whole entire life with that guy right up until we both died and we had 10 kids and blah, blah. That's because that's a possibility. It's a parallel reality. And that reality was started because you both put energy into it. And so that's a possibility, a probability that could be its own thing. So I kind of think that it's like that, where I don't think it's as basic and easy as just we die, we go into, you know, how like the basics, how they used to say you die, you go into this other place and you figure out if you want to come back. And of course, you always come back, you know, to Earth because you have all these lessons to learn. I do not think it's that easy at all. I think there's zillions of places to go to. And I think that we're in such a small little bubble part of the room filled with an infinite number of bubbles that maybe we go just to the next one or the next one or the next one. But because we have an infinite amount of time, I think at some points you're like right off into a totally different reality dimension. And I've had experiences like that too, where I was in places where the physics wasn't the same. I had this one, I'll just say in like 2 minutes. I went to this place one time where I did mushrooms one time, and I experienced in one, say 2 or 3 hour time frame, I was listening to music at the same time, and it's like really hard to explain, but I was so sure, and I'm still so sure that this is part of really what's going on. I went to not maybe an infinite number of places, but say 100. At the same time, my body broke up and I was 100% convinced that I was living one full life on a different planet in say 100, I don't know how many, but just say 100, like it was a lot, 100-ish different realities where I had, you know, sometimes I was called Desta, sometimes I wasn't even a female, sometimes it wasn't even female and male that were there. It was just like weird things that I didn't even have concepts for. They didn't even have lessons like we do. So it was like the earth, the big message was that the earth and the Schumann resonance here, that is like a vibration of the planet that holds us into this one planet. And in this one planet, the reason that we have lessons like love, understanding, compassion, you know, empathy, those are lessons, human lessons that we reincarnate to learn with our fellow humans. And we have gravity and, you know, like the multiverse theory, like whatever you want to say, in this earth. But in all these other planets, they don't even have concepts of love and empathy, understanding, you know, whatever. They have totally different lessons that we don't even have words for, because they have totally different like laws of physics, because they're in a different realm that isn't in like even our universe or our concept of what in this universe, you know, the theories could be for physics in this universe. It's a totally different thing. They don't have men and women. they maybe don't have animals, they don't have anything, but they each vibrate at a totally different frequency. And that frequency is what connects them. The frequency is what holds everything together. And that is why, and that is when you die and you want to figure out where else you're going to go. You could go anywhere, and it's really an unlimited, limitless like amount of places that you could go to learn lessons that you don't even have English words for, into dimensions or parallel realities or universes or worlds that you have never even thought about. I think it's so insanely huge that no one talks about it, because people don't even understand, because unless you've had experiences like that, your thoughts are very limited to how small and how like compact the potentials are for what does happen when you die and if you come back. Some people don't even believe that, right? So but I think it's way bigger than that. That's a lot of talking to say it's so crazy. I don't think it's anything like what we normally talk about.
Yeah. You talked about so that's also just in the last part of what you're talking about. We're two opposites. That's how the opposites attract. They actually, magnetism draws things together. So that's one part of it. The other part is I see Marianne Sperry is here, and I saw Paul was here earlier, and the idea of NDEs. And the idea of when people go, I've listened to, before I went to the near-death experiencers in Phoenix this last winter, or this fall, I talked to 16 people that had passed and had a near-death experience, and I'd listened to their experience, which it took me on another world. And I've been lucky enough that I've had so many different types of experiences, and I'm sure you get the same. You get drawn into an aura of a type of an experience, and near-death experiences I was very attracted to. So, and not one of them that I talk at the 16, and the other 12 or 14 that I met at the near-death experiencers who also told me their experience, not one of them fears death. And it's the idea of, so when I died, I went up to this place, two large angels. One lady told me, she said it was two large angels, 14-foot spans of their wings. I went to this white building, probably like heavenly like. I walked down a hallway, I looked in and saw people. The two angels took me to a double door at the end. I opened the door. Jesus Christ was sitting there on a bench, ready to talk to me. I walked in, they bowed out and left me with Jesus Christ for 2 hours to talk. So the idea of attraction and the thing that how you believe, like when your dad had a near-death experience, I'm not sure if he related to you, but, and that's not the important, I'm not asking to hear that's personal to him. But the people that I talk to are all saying they have a message. They came back because they have things to do. And a lot of them have to deliver their message related to these experiences of near death. So also glues into the concept of your reality that you talk about here, of that people attract to that and they want to go towards things that they really are connected to. So if they're Christians, they're drawn to Christ or to God, and all the other issues of life that are drawn, no matter what that is. So your issue here of, would you agree with that? The near-death experiences, that's what they're being drawn, because everyone has, some of them go to their dog and see their dog in the afterlife.
Really?
Yeah, which I've had, which is quite interesting. I thought, not your aunt, not your grandmother, not your mother, no, your dog. Okay. Well, maybe you had some problems with that family at one point. But anyways, so I love asking this question of everyone. I think you've probably given more of a detailed response than anyone in the 9 years that we've had this show. Actually 10 years now. But that's very, very interesting stuff. I think I'm always attracted to it, and thank you for giving the answer, which is your answer, which is great. So let's just take a jump from near-death experiences and magnetism, and you're talking about fracturing to the 100 lives living at the same time. Now, does your fiance know that you had 2 boyfriends and that you picked him?
I don't know if he's listening to that. It's just it's a really easy one, right? Because it's 2 people putting energy into that the whole time. And so that's, for me, the easiest. Because some people say, well, if I go to the ice cream store and I can't decide if I should get vanilla or chocolate, then is one of the arms of that parallel reality me of what happened if I took, vanilla ice cream instead of chocolate ice cream. So I don't know if it's, as if I know, but I mean, in what I would guess is that I think it's the good explanation is if you have a couple people and or just even a group of people that were going to move on to do something all together, and then you don't do it and you all do something different, then for sure that there's enough energy, because the more that every time someone's thinking about, oh, remember when we were all in that group and we decided we were going to buy a house in Italy together, and then we all got married and did something different, whatever it is, when there's multiple people putting energy in it, I think that's what really ensures and I've read that's what ensures the line of the reality continues, because people keep going back and thinking about it and putting their energy into it. So, who knows if that's how it works, but.
Yeah. And it was funny because I had written, I'm writing in the chat questions. So when you're saying something, I'm writing it down so I can ask you up. And I wrote the word bilocating, and no sooner did I write bilocate, you said 100 in different locations. So you always seem to take things to extreme by looks at things.
Yeah.
And good for you. That would be quite interesting. And the different, you explained a few different existences, right? When that happened, could you actually go back and now and recall every one of those the 100 that you experienced?
It took a long time again to even be thinking about each one of those things, but it's like when you come back from those kind of, experiences at the beginning, you really can remember it. So right at the very beginning, I was going to start writing a bunch of things. It's so hard to, it's like a download that when I've had things like that before, it's so much information in such a small place in your head or something, where to be able to explain it, you have to think about how to explain it first. So I always grab my audio recorder now. I used to go try typing it, but now I just grab my phone and go on audio and try to talk, so I have record of it. And that's the easiest thing to do, right? Is just do an audio recording and keep it on my phone. But the problem is when it's really crazy things like that, you have to kind of back up to the beginning to figure out how you're going to speak it, because we kind of tend to speak in linear timelines. So you kind of want to start at the beginning and then kind of track to the end. So, but when you have such a crazy experience like that, I was trying to rewind the experience to the beginning and then to try and figure out how to explain it. And it takes so long to figure out how to unravel each storyline that by the time you're even figuring out how to speak on the audio recording, so much is flying away from you. And so by the time you even start trying to explain it and be able to unravel how it started and how it finished one thing, you already keep there's 10 or 20 or 30 of those lives flying away. And I was feeling them flying away, but it's you can't catch on to being able to think so intricately to put words to something so crazy that by the time you end up doing it, I think recorded one or two of what the lives actually were. And I knew that those crazy ones were flying away, but it's I don't know how to catch on to those things. But one of the things I said to myself, in this audio recording, was that it's all about those vibrations, and how it was related to me was strings on an instrument, or listening to music, where that's how they were explaining it. It's basically if you listen to a song and the guitar is doing something, every single note the guitar is doing, every single note the bass is doing, every single vocal range the singer is doing, maybe not the drums, I don't know, but at least for frequency and vibrations, every one of those notes is a tone, which is also a color and a frequency. And that's how each one, so at the same time, you're think of listening to 1 minute of your favorite song, or not even, say 10 seconds of your favorite song. So think in those 10 seconds that maybe the guitar player plays, I don't know, 20 notes or however many, everyone does 20 notes in 10 seconds, but those 20 notes, the guitar and the bass and the singer are not singing the same notes. They're singing 3 different chords of whatever. So it's like each one of the notes that they're latching onto at any 1 second is that vibration and frequency. And that was the planet. That was the place, because that frequency is different. Every note the guitar player is doing, and every note the bass player is doing, and every note that it's all different. And so they were saying like the Schumann resonance is the note or the vibration or the color or the tone of Earth. But just like music has all different vibrations, frequencies, colors, tones, and notes, that is what is connected to that planet, each thing. So they were kind of saying like, all you need to really do to get back to, and I channeled on this for months because I was so fascinated with what that, the potential of what, if that was true or not, like what I saw. I channeled, probably 30 times, 30 hours worth of channeling, asking and trying to go back to that and trying to say, is this how it really is? Is this what it is? And they were basically saying, so like the tone or the frequency of Earth, say it's the Schumann resonance, and then say each one of these other notes, that's the resonance of that planet. And that's also, like you're saying, right? It's the not gravity, I don't know what the thing is, but it's the pull, it's the magnetics of that planet, and all, so that like C, or I don't know anything about music, but like that one note is associated with that planet, that vibration. That's what makes people look the way they do, makes the lessons that on that planet, it makes everything associated with that planet, and it's at a totally different place. And think of all the different notes that there is, even in music now, but think of all the things that we can't even hear that aren't, recorded. They say celestial music, it's not even recorded, it's not on a guitar fretboard or whatever. It's like, it's not Earth, it's not of this world, right? So think of all the different tones and frequencies and everything. And if that's what it really is, it says, the message kind of was like that, just meditate on that one note, and that note will send you back to that planet. And then you can go and experience everything and remember everything that you felt like when you were on that planet, because that is associated with that note, just like the Schumann resonance. If you were to meditate, and I actually have on one of my things here, I have the Schumann resonances embedded in the frequency of the, I have like a biotuner that's like a meditation kind of thing, and they do like 111, and they do a handful of different hertz on there. But the Schumann resonance is embedded in the background of each one. So it's like, that's weird. Like why are we always listening to that Schumann resonance? Because I think it's embedded within us. I think that is, we're Earth beings, we're Earthlings, we live here. That is part of us. So I think so that's weird, because it makes sense. And, it's good to have some validation for myself that kind of made sense. So maybe it's true, but who knows if it is, and it's like really far out to think of those things. But that is what I kind of want to know, is like, I have lots of hypnagogic and hypnopompic hallucinations, whatever, in the middle of the night as well. And it's like when I wake up in the night and something's standing there, it's like, where does that thing live? Like, is it how they say, like they're just right beside us, but what does that mean? What is the next parallel dimension to us? Is it a bubble? Is it like, I used to think about it like a gigantic book, and each one of us was on a page, and we're pages of this like trillion page book or whatever. And so it's like us peering into the other reality, like how CERN is supposed to be poking holes into the next dimension. It's just like, are we page 1,000? And if we're trying to poke holes into the next dimension, are we trying to look at page 1001 or 999? And that's the two parallel dimensions on either side of us. And so is it that all the ETs or, Bigfoots or like whatever, fairies or anything you want to say, is it just coming from those two realities? Or is it more like a bubble where there's a zip, like how many bubbles can fit on all sides of a bubble, so for us to be able to poke through the bubble into a different thing, maybe there's like 100 different ones that we can very easily poke into, and maybe they don't live together and they all live in a different bubble or something. So yeah, I love thinking of like, where do these beings live, and do they all know each other? Can they all see each other? Do they all communicate with each other? And like, so how is our reality based compared to other realities? And how can we go and see these people, and how do we know how to get back to the same place to meet up with the same beings? Like, how is it constructed? I love trying to figure out what it is.
It's fascinating stuff, really is. Um, so we have a mutual friend in Grant, and a lot of people here know who Grant is and what he does. But also the idea, one of the issues, I remember going to a conference in Arizona where he talked about music and the connection between music and how many people are downloaded with the words, and like Paul McCartney, the Guess Who playing a concert, warming up, and all of a sudden, American Woman appears on the stage where they're just playing
That's a good one.
playing notes with each other, and these connections, these special connections. And I'm like one of these people that's very connected to music. I went and saw Burton Cummings 2 days ago in Phoenix here.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's great to go back and reconnect. And when he starts playing music I listened to in 1979, it puts me in that era. Like
Absolutely.
I
I
could
love
sing the
it.
song. I remember the words, even though I can't remember my middle name most of the time. I can remember the words of these songs I heard in 1979. So, so yeah, I think there's a real connection to vibration and sound and stuff like that to us. And it's fascinating how the music industry has gone from, well, let's take it a step back, from Beethoven to rap. The transition along the lines and the deeper, darker music in today's world, where I see the world going in a very negative way in a lot of respects. And I've had some feelings of that, and I try to stay out of that. And people ask me when I meet with them, they ask, "So how you doing?" I say, "I'm living the dream. I'm trying to stay on the positive because I don't want to create a negative world." So
Mm.
music is a big one for me, and the wooden flute, playing, some guy playing it in the mountains, like I could just, please take me there. Like I would love to sit there and listen to them, that type of thing. Anyways, I digress. So, you're doing some books with Grant. You're doing some new editing, and plus he comes up with some new ideas, and people bring him stuff and introduce. What types of new things have you come across lately? You're probably editing some books of his, I presume.
I am. I was just going to say something about the music too when you were
Go ahead.
saying that. Oh yeah, I'll say one thing backwards about that because I am a huge music person. I worked at in Winnipeg, my last job, when I was actually working before I got laid off, was at a big music chain in Winnipeg, and a big Canadian music chain. So I ran 33 stores all across Western Canada. And so I'm huge into music, and the entire time I worked there, I only stayed working. I wasn't being paid hardly anything, but I stayed working there because I got every CD that I wanted. All I did all day was have stacks of free music, and I ordered for 33 stores. And I traveled to BC and, to all out west constantly. Like 2 weeks of every month I was traveling. So I was staying in hotels and hiring and firing people the whole time. But mainly I was listening to music like 10 hours a day, every single day for 13 years. That's all I did.
Wow.
So I have a really, and before that, before I was working, like when I was younger, all of my friends were in bands, and we were at the bar 6 nights out of the week with a different friend playing at a different bar. So I'm a huge, 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 huge music person. So I totally agree with you. And and Burton Cummings, of course, because we're from Winnipeg, and so is he. And even when I was young, all my friends, when I was like, 15 or whatever, we were going to parties. All we did was listen. We had our set 50s and 60s music that we were listening to. So I can now listen to any music. I know the words of like probably 30,000 songs or something. I know my boyfriend can't even believe it every single time. No matter the first second anything comes onto the song, I know every single word to it. And but it's like when you really a lot of like meditations that I do it because I'm not a very good sleeper. So I'm up, usually at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I put on headphones and listen to music. And it's like, I can completely, without doing mushrooms, I can completely transport my entire self to a place where to places where I've been. So I've traveled a lot too. And when I traveled alone a lot in the last like from 2012 to say 2020 or whatever, I went to Europe, every year. and I was by myself traveling for 3 to 6 months out of the year. And I had, my phone or iPod all the time filled with music. And so I was by myself for months at a time, not talking to anyone, but listening to music. So I can still today have a playlist from the thousands of, songs on my phone or whatever. And if I am in a dark room, like in the middle of the night, I can listen to a song. And if I haven't heard that song since 2013, I know where I was in Italy, at what bus stop. I remember what B&B I stayed at, what the people said to me before I left, where I went that day. I remember every single solitary thing. And these things like Terence McKenna, that's why I was bringing up Grant's book about psilocybin. Terence McKenna was like the biggest psychonaut of all time that did mushrooms every 3 days, psilocybin every 3 days, and was really trying to figure out what our reality was as well. And his big thing was you have to do 5 drive grams in a dark room, by yourself in a pitch black room. And so for me, I can even be listening to a playlist of a random out of 5,000 songs on my phone, random playlist. And just for an hour in the middle of the night, if you can't see anything and the room is black and you can listen to something that takes you back to a different time, I swear, like, that's part of my thing where I'm trying to like go to these other places, because it's like, how can your brain be so connected to a piece of music that you heard maybe 20 years ago that you can remember your friends, what you were wearing, you remember all these weird things. And then when you come back, like sometimes because the room is black, after I've gone to, if I've listened to 20 songs in an hour and I've gone to Italy and France and all over the world and to the 70s and to the 80s, and last week or whatever, I've just experienced the craziest, like, what is that? I don't even know. And then I open my eyes and the room is black and I don't remember where I am. There's always a couple minutes where it's like I have just witnessed so much in this 20 minutes that I look around and it's like, I don't remember what side of the bed I'm on because I don't remember which house I'm living in. I don't remember where I am. And it takes a while to reorient myself. So it's like, why does that happen? And I do it all the time to kind of try to figure out what does that even mean? Like, am I actually teleporting myself to a different reality to re-experience those things? Or is it just a memory? Because I have such a bad memory. If you paid me $1 million, I would never, ever, ever, ever be able to remember a bus stop in Italy, even though I've been there numerous times. But if I listened to a song that I was listening to when I was there, I can remember everything that was happening as it was happening. I don't know how that happens. And so I don't know if that's a thing in our brain or if that's something that is like yet to be discovered with the, I don't know, psychic connections or like what music does with that vibration thing, or who knows, parallel dimensions, teleporting. I don't know what it is, but it's so weird to me that it's more real than real, listening to a song for 5 minutes in a pitch black room and going into a different reality that you don't remember who you are when you come back. Like, that's like really weird.
So I want to jump in here because there's some interesting things here about this. So Chris Bledsoe, who Grant and I went with Chris, as I'd mentioned even before this, we went to Pennsylvania with Mark Leone and Tim Taylor and Peter Robbins, and a number of us all went of like minds. Went to these places, and then Chris, after we all dispersed after 5 days there, Chris sent Grant something about Led Zeppelin. Now I'm a massive Led Zeppelin fan, and so I sing along with songs when I got headphones on. I could just hear myself singing, which I'm not a very good singer, and I know that even with headphones on because they're black out here. And, my sister laughs at me when I was a kid. I'm singing all the wrong words. I'm doing all that kind of stuff. So I'm not like you. But Chris Bledsoe sent him Kashmir. Now, Kashmir is one of my favorite songs, right? So anyways, first of all, the connection to the song is totally different to me than it was to Chris. And then when I heard Chris say it, it changed my whole perception of the song. Once you hear the lyrics and you start going, beings from another race. So I suspect they have connections, like with these ETs. That's where they're getting this music from, right? And maybe even forecasting something that's going to happen in this world, which was a sunspot that actually burned the earth brown. And my experience, funnily and strangely, is the first time I had that kind of experience was in 2010 at my cottage when a craft called me out while I was watching the movie Knowing, which is about the earth getting taken out by a solar storm, right?
Mhm.
So I'm thinking, why would you send me that? And then it screwed me up because I like that song. Now I'm going, oh my, it's a dark song in my head now for some reason. So yeah, there's something, could be the vibration, could be the energy in that song. Because to me, as soon as I start hearing it, I stop everything and just turn it up and listen to it, right? Type thing. Not just Kashmir, but most incredible old song. I'm a 70s kind of guy, but anyways, I digress again. So
I totally agree, though. There's definitely something, it's like, and you can really feel it too for songs that you love, no matter who you are, no matter what genre it is, right? And even when you're saying younger people with rap music or whatever, it's like I know exactly what you're saying, but I still think that it's still lyrics sometimes as well. I'm a big lyrics person, so I know all the lyrics, and it's funny because the more that the lyrics make more sense to me, like there's a band that I followed for my whole life and still to this day. And it was so crazy that I had such a weird synchronicity that every time they put out an album, which was like only every 5 years, still to this day, it's not very often, that I listened to the lyrics and I realized that the singer he must have been researching the same topics I was, because there's songs on the new album that are about things that like sacred geometry or like all this kind of stuff. And I always thought like the synchronicity of every album. And there was one album where I went to India the fall previous year, and then I came back and I was thinking, I wish that the drummer of that band knew how to play tabla, because he's such a good drummer. And because, I learned a bunch about tabla when I was in India. And the next album that came out the following year from that same band, they were playing tabla on it. And they had some songs that they had wrote and were very obviously inspired by some kind of Indian, I can't even remember now. But so every album that came out every 5 years, I knew that those lyrics were based on Drunvalo Melchizedek, is one of the authors that I knew he must have read The Flower of Life, because of some things that were in the lyrics. And I was just thinking like the synchronicity, and I think that's also part of it. I bet, and just to say, because you're talking about Kashmir here, that Jimmy Page, the guitar player of Led Zeppelin, bought Aleister Crowley's house on Loch Ness, where allegedly he did a ritual that opened a portal that allowed the Loch Ness out, and that's why Loch Ness is there, whatever. But Jimmy Page was obsessed with Aleister Crowley and bought his house where that ritual was done, on the corner of Loch Ness. And I went there to look at the house to see it when I was in Scotland, because I think those are the crazy things is people. So Jimmy Page must have been really, was really involved in the occult, and just like looking up what people from the 1800s, 1880s were doing with all this like ritual magic, and like, trying to investigate how to talk to the other side. And so he ended up buying that house, and he had tons of crazy experiences in that house. It was supposed to be haunted, like beyond belief. He didn't even stay there that long. But a friend of his that stayed, that was like the housekeeper, was experiencing crazy paranormal stuff like every single day. Anyways, and then you read the lyrics to the song. So it's like, and then you're interested in these kind of things and finally learn what the lyrics are to a song, which has to do with aliens, and then see the connection to paranormal stuff. It's like, and same with me when I'm talking about the band is Tool, and Maynard James Keenan is the singer. And I swear he's reading the same books that I am at the same time, and then incorporating it into the next album. And so when I hear that music, I am like so insanely connected to the music, but I guarantee it's because whether it's coming from a download, it's like whatever vibe he's on, I'm on the same vibe, and the music he's making and the things he's reading is just why I love it so much, is because it's you're on the same vibe, right? Like whatever that vibe really means. But I bet it's the same with the Led Zeppelin thing. And I bet it's the same with a different person, maybe isn't involved, like doesn't care about Aleister Crowley or Jimmy Page or whatever, but maybe there's 10 other things like synchronicity that they also like Kashmir for, that are also, you know, why they vibe so good with that song. I swear it has to do with some like really inner workings of things that we don't really even understand, why things are so magnetized to us and connected to us with people that are total strangers. But I think that that has something to do with it. And music, I think, is the thing that's tying all these weird emotions and synchronicities and all this stuff together at the same time.
Yeah. And I see
Maybe.
people in the chat, and we should probably go and answer some of the questions that are in there, but in some of the lyrics that people have posted in from the Kashmir song, which people want to go to chat, you can see some of the quotes. I'm not sure. So I've sang along with that song and I never knew those lyrics for some reason. So obviously it shows I'm not very good at it, but you know, like to sit with elders of a gentle race, like, I mean, okay, you know, benevolent ETs, you would think, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And traveler of both time and space. You know, the whole thing is like, wow, connected to it. So just so not to let's just take a couple of minutes and go through some of the questions, because I got to tell you,
Sure.
I'm just noticing we're at 8:23 already. It seems like we've been at this for 20 minutes and it's like an hour and a half already. So good for you. I mean, I'm very engaging. I like it, and I hope people enjoy what we're talking about. If not, I apologize, and it's too bad.
Yeah, me too.
That's your problem. Anyways, look up, by the way, people, if you take a minute, just go to your, like I just captured the lyrics to Kashmir. If you want, just type in on your Google, say Led Zeppelin Kashmir, and ask for the lyrics and read the lyrics. And I think a lot of you people would be quite surprised to what you read. Anyways, so you, going into Grant, because you and I have this connection, and I was lucky enough that I lived in the same city as Grant. Grant's now moved to Vancouver, and I told him that we have a spiritual void in Winnipeg ever since he's left, and you now as well, because what can we do? All this voids that we have to start creating our own music here. So let's just talk a bit about Grant and something, because he's such a unique person, and I'm not trying to digress away from you and your story. You are so involved with him and doing a lot of editing. Give us some insight into Grant from your perspective, from the things that he's working on, and that things that maybe you've learned from him from that time. And I've done some of the same. So carry on.
So right now I have 3 of his books. He's doing a series of 5 or 6 disclosure books. So he's already done Managing Magic. The first one was the Area 51 and government informants, and then it was Managing Magic, and then he did Beyond Managing Magic. So right now I'm editing Beyond Managing Magic 2. So that's just another one of he still has 1 or 2 more after this coming out, but it's like a disclosure series. So it's basically about Pandolfi and, you know, all the inner workings of the government and what they know and if they're disclosing. And he's so good at taking, I don't know how he even figures out half this stuff, but like what people say in, I was going to say Parliament, in the Senate in the States, and you know what Biden knows or doesn't know, what different senators know, what they want to release, what they're trying to release, bills they're trying to, I don't know how he finds out about stuff like that. But it's all like about disclosure, right? Like who's pushing what. And with the most recent talks that there was recently with I can't remember anyone's name, with Grush and David Fravor. So there's a lot of that new stuff in there as well. Just like trying to say like what disclosure is, if they're pushing it and who knows what, basically. So it's another one of his disclosure books. So I just finished that. He's just reviewing my edits. We're adding another couple things, but that should be out in the next maybe 2-ish weeks. If you're interested in disclosure stuff. The next 2 books are the hard one. I've had them for quite a while. I was supposed to have them both done by Christmas, but of course I fell. And so I haven't been able to sit in the office, but they're 2 huge books. So it was a huge 500-page book that he sent me that I've split into, and I'm kind of doing a supernatural part of it that has to do with like psychic abilities and a bunch of like the more psychic stuff. And one that's, I can't even remember the names of the books, we just started working on the covers for them, and one that's a paranormal one that has to do with more the entities and the men in black and Skinwalker Ranch and, you know, beings and portals and like more physical things I'm putting into the paranormal book. So this will be the last, and so it's 2 books. It's, I don't know if it's going to be volume 1 and 2, but it's just like 2 big books that are basically a bunch of new insights and studies and stories from experiencers about those 2 groups of things, the supernatural side of things and the paranormal side of things. Yeah, and Grant is like the most prolific writer. I have worked with a lot of different people in the UFO community and know a lot of people in the community. And Grant is definitely, I have never met anyone that is that prolific. So and I know his little secret. So I know that he also does presentations, not as much anymore, but like, you know, when I was really working, you know, over the last 10 years almost, I've been working with him. And I know how he does it. So I know that he has a PowerPoint presentation open on his computer at any time. And he has like 10 unfinished manuscripts. And every day that he sits at his computer and is like learning new things, he's pulling out quotes, studies, stories from emails, all this stuff, and he's putting each one into a different book, into a different manuscript, and into a different PowerPoint presentation for the next time he has to do a PowerPoint. So I know that that's how he does it. So the funny thing is when I fell, and I'll just include this because someone's asked this question, so I'll include this question in my answer here. So someone's asking, well, someone said something about anxiety, and if you're like worrying about stuff, how do you separate anxiety-driven thoughts of worry about bad outcomes from manifesting? Like, can we make bad things happen because of anxiety? So that's not specifically about anxiety, but I'll answer this because Mark and I were just talking about this. My leg broke on Remembrance Day, and I just tripped down the stairs. It was like literally nothing. But I was just telling Mark that the crazy thing was, we own a landscaping, like a pond building company out here. And so we only work from April to November, and then we're off for the winter, except we've been renovating the house here last winter and this winter. But we work a lot, like 10 hours a day, 6 days a week from April to November. And then we have a couple months off. And, I was so tired this summer. We were working so much, and we didn't have a break last winter because we bought a house and renovated the house all of last winter. So just a month before I fell, I was saying to Matt almost every single day, like, I am so exhausted, I need a break. And like my actual words were, I need a break, I need a break. Almost every day I was saying, I can't keep working like this. I need a break. I need to sit on the couch. I need to sit in the bed. No, I said, I need to sit in bed for like a month or 2 and do nothing except for watch TV. I need a break. I need a break. I was saying that every day for an entire month. And then what happened is I fell, broke my leg in 3 places, and now have sat in bed and nowhere else except for in bed for 60 straight days in the same place in the same bed. So like I said, this is the first time I've sat here for more than 15 minutes, and I only started doing that like a couple of weeks ago. I couldn't even do it last month. I couldn't sit here with my leg hanging down for more than 5 minutes. My foot turns black almost and puffs up. So, so anyways, so about that, and so worrying about things, I wouldn't say if your anxiety is going to get worse because I had an anxiety problem for a year or 2, and it was horrible. So I feel you, Jay, in the thing. It's absolutely horrible having anxiety because you can't control it. And I had a horrible time for a couple of years. And so I'm not trying to scare you. And that's the whole point, though, is that you can't worry about it. Don't be scared if you can't stop the anxiety, because I know how anxiety works. And every second that you feed it a tiny bit more, it turns into a monster and it takes over everything, and you can't stop the thoughts. So, but what Mark and I were talking about is you absolutely, if you say something to yourself a million times, you are definitely bringing that vibration into you. And so you have to be careful of what you think, because it's the same as manifesting, whether you're manifesting something good or just having all this negativity. Anxiety, I would say, is a little bit different because you can't really control those thoughts, but it's a good maybe deterrent to start with if you have anxiety and are worrying about a lot of bad things is to every single time, like I had, my mom used to have this thing, or not my mom, my aunt had this thing where she put an elastic, I think they used to do this in the 80s or something, an elastic band around their wrist. And every time she would have a bad thought, she would snap the elastic because it was sending a shock, kind of like, just like when your dog starts barking, you have to quickly go, no, because you're trying to snap his head out of that barking and then just like redirect him for a second, and it stops the like transmission. So he'll stop if you instantly say it when he starts barking, just like you have a bad thought and you snap your wrist. It's like a diversion tactic to where you're trying to stop bad thoughts. One of my mom's other friends used to, as soon as she would say something, she would say cancel, cancel, cancel 3 times after she would say the bad thing to try taking it back. So I think, again, for anxiety is really tough because it's really hard it took me a long time to get out of that cycle, and it was horrible. But I would say maybe trying to do something like that, you're trying to fill in more positive things to just try and counter the negative things, because it's not even, it's like beyond your control kind of when you have an anxiety issue. But that's what I would say, is you should start trying to put in good things to counterbalance the anxiety ridden thoughts instead of letting them just take over, and you can never kind of like lasso them into you and try and stop them. But oh yeah, but I was trying to rope that into something and now I forgot what it was. Me
Something to do
breaking
with
my
Grant.
legs.
You were talking about Grant and music. What was it?
Grant and
Yeah, what was it?
oh yeah, and so I stole Grant's thing. So now that I was in bed for so long, and how much TV can you watch? I mean, we don't even have regular TV, so it's like Netflix. How much Netflix can you watch? There's nothing on that's ever good. So I was like, okay. So I got all my fiance's like laptop and all this stuff, all the cords set up in the bed, and I've been sitting there, for 12 hours a day for 60 days. So I mean, I've done the same thing that Grant did now. So now I have everything that I'm reading. I have a stack of books, all the websites, all the podcasts that I'm listening to. And I started writing books, and I started with a couple different manuscripts and then just pulling stuff into each manuscript. And I'm totally stealing Grant's whole thing, where I have 4 books almost completely written, but in the next couple months, they should maybe all be out. But it's because if you have nothing else to do and you're sitting in bed like that, to just be thinking and trying to say, like, what is something important that people should know, or what's something that I know about that I can easily write a bunch of stuff and then try filling it and seeing if it's going to be enough to fill up a book. And so by doing that and having multiple manuscripts, basically you're like writing 4 books at the same time. You could be writing 1 book because you're just different days, you're like bored of this one, but instead of being like, oh, I have writer's block because you only have 1 book going, you're just like, I'm bored of this one, but I can work on this one. And then so you're kind of like, it's kind of like 4 for 1. And I think that's how Grant is so prolific, because he's writing at the same time multiple manuscripts. And then as soon as one gets to be, 2 or 3 or 400 pages, then it's like, okay, I can't write anymore about this book. So I'm definitely stealing some of his stuff. But yeah, so those 3 books of his should be out. But I go to work on April 1st. So I have to have everything done by the time I go back to work. So his 3 books should be out before then. And at least 3 of my books should be out before then as well.
Enough of Grant. I mean, we've had enough of him.
Yeah.
A great guy. I've been lucky enough to have many lunches with him and to sit and listen to him. We'd be sitting in Olive Garden in Winnipeg, and sitting at a table, and if people have ever been in Olive Garden, there are rows where they have people right beside you in other booths. Honest to God, I'd have people stopping the person they're with, so they could listen to Grant, because Grant was like, he's getting excited about what he's talking about and he's saying, and I'm just like, and he's getting louder. And I'm going, holy smokes, everybody's involved with our conversation. So anyways, it's been very interesting with him.
He is.
So we got some people have their hands up.
Sure.
Do you mind if I have them present
Sure,
their
sure.
question
Absolutely.
or whatever? Jan, do you want to go unmute yourself and ask a question?
Yeah, hey Mark, hey Desta.
Hello.
Very good presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
Question is, you mentioned about the fact that when anyone channels, there's a risk of channeling something disingenuous, right? And some there've been anecdotes of people saying, "Oh, they saw something and it was Archangel Michael," but then after a while, shape shifted into something else, and I was like, "Oh." Yeah. So the question is, how does a channeler really discern whether what they're receiving is genuine or not?
I can definitely answer this of firsthand experience and things I've read. So, and because we've researched so much into, and I've done so many, seances and Ouija board things and all this kind of stuff. So I know from a perspective of physical mediumship and physical seances, one of the first things they say is as soon as something comes that starts feeling bad or giving a bad message. So if you're like on a Ouija board or whatever, and it starts saying something crazy, you're supposed to instantly stop the session and not pick up the board again, right? So it's the same thing for channeling. I am lucky enough for sure to say that I have never had anything bad channeling. I've never had anything bad. I have had bad experiences when I was doing entity. The only two bad experiences I've ever had was when I was doing entity removals. And I don't do them anymore because the only two times I ever tried to do it, I had something in the room with me. One time it was trying to squeeze the life out of me, and I was really sick for weeks after. And it was something like around my neck and around my legs that was squeezing me, when I was doing an entity removal thing. And I was sick for weeks after that. And another time I was doing another one out of someone that lived in Toronto. And I had something that felt like a block of ice that was sitting on my lap. So I was doing a Zoom call. I was doing it over a Zoom call. And something was in the room instantly that I was pulling out of him and came in the room on me, sitting on my lap, cold as ice. And I couldn't get rid of it. I didn't know how to get rid of it. And anyway, so those are the only bad two things I ever had. And it was like I was doing something that potentially sounds like it possibly could be, I was trained in how to get rid of them. And I have to say that be careful of the training, because the training that I received from multiple different teachers did not work. So I do not believe that there is someone who really knows how to deal with these things, because whatever those things are, the training that I received from multiple people did not work. And I thankfully just was sick for a couple of weeks and then I got better. But I have to say, for channeling, I have never had anything bad. But I would say it would be the same thing that it would be for anything else, where if you start feeling like that there's something bad, or if you start getting any weird messages that's either telling you to do something or saying anything negative in any way, I would just say stop. But I'll also say that I have huge protection prayers that I do beforehand, and make sure you properly close the session after. That I have even channeled messages that said, make sure that this is what you do, because this is the way that you make sure that you don't have anything that stays too long. I smudge myself all the time, not since I've been sick, but almost every day. I have smudge bowls everywhere in the whole entire house. I smudge all the time. I do energy clearings all the time. I do meditations that take any kind of lower astral entities or anything, astral ties, connections to other people that I don't want. If someone's trying to latch something onto me, all sorts of different things. I do tons of different clearings all the time, but especially when I sit down to channel or to do any of this stuff, to douse or do remote viewing or anything, I always have protection things where I say, I do a protection prayer. I asked my spirit team or the guides or whoever it is that's with me to make sure that they don't let anything in, and to be my gatekeepers and make sure that whatever they're going to let in, that they vet the thing first and only let things in that are of a higher vibration than I am, and things that are safe. And then at the end, I make sure that I picture myself having a trap door or whatever on my crown chakra, and I make sure that I close the trap door and I say thank you to everyone. It is over. Any connections, we're disassembling or dissolving any connections that I've had with any of the beings that I've just been channeling or connecting with. And then my grandma always said to clap 3 times. So I still clap 3 times, but I also have bells, because bells I'm putting that in one of the books. Bells, church bells were actually used a long time ago in the old days, because the vibration of the church bells were supposed to be rung to dissolve any entities that were coming into the town, in towns in Europe, at least, that were built with cathedrals. That's why a lot of those big bells were there. So I have bells all over the place, even weird bells, like just owl bells or, any bells, but just clapping because it's a vibration or ringing a bell at the end just to make sure that the session is closed. So nothing can follow you, and that's the intention, right? Nothing's allowed to attach to me. Nothing stays in this room. You cleanse yourself, cleanse the room. I think if you do those kind of things, like I've never had a problem. I do those things all the time and I've never had a problem. The only times I had problems were when I was, I think, involving myself in something that could have been a problem, and I don't think I should have been doing it. And that's crazy that both times I did it, I had a horrible experience. So, that's definitely something I wouldn't be doing, but it's also maybe a little bit of proof that if you mess with weird things and you don't know what you're doing, or with things that could be negative in the first place, you might get something bad. But if you're trying to connect with something of a higher vibration and you're just trying to get a message for you, and you're doing a protection thing, and you're, asking for protection and closing the session properly, I always get the message that light always wins over darkness. And as long as you're holding in your heart the good vibration, best intentions, and you're not doing it for anything, for any negative, I'm not doing it to make money. Sometimes I end up putting something out in a book. Obviously, you don't make any money if you publish a book, but I'm not doing it because I'm not trying to seek any fame. I'm not doing it for any reason that might be construed from the other side as something where, I don't know, they might get mad or might do something about it. So that's what I do, and I've never had any problems. So that would just be and in the books that I'm writing, I'm putting huge things about exactly how to protect yourself and how to close off the session, because it definitely works for me. But I've heard lots of horror stories as well about things. And I don't hear people that do the things that you're supposed to do like this, that have negative experiences, hardly ever. So I think that there's something to it. Yeah, and I just know that I've never had anything bad when I've been doing it.
Yeah, it makes sense. Thank you very much for that. So bottom line is, in terms of just discerning the information coming in, you have to use intuition. It's inescapable that you have to just use that and feel it out, right? If you don't mind, just really quick question, and I'll be done. What have you heard of Marshall Summers? And if you have, what is your opinion? He was a
No.
channeler of. He wrote a book, or a set of books, called Allies of Humanity. It was basically regarding the non-human intelligence presence on the planet and what that's all about. And long story short, they were basically saying that a lot of the non-human intelligence is not of the beneficial kind, and especially the ones that promote transhumanism and technological progress at the cost of consciousness and connection to spirit, is actually something that's nefarious, that's leading humanity towards away from spirit, towards kind of like a homogenization around the high tech, a la, let's say, the archetype of the graves. So anyway, if you haven't, it's fine, but I was just curious, from someone like you who's a channeler, any opinion on that.
Yeah, I haven't at all. I wrote it down though to look into it, but I do watch a lot of videos on AI and what's going to happen, because like anyone, I'm wondering if same thing, right? Is like, I watch all the Ex Machina and all the movies to try and say, like, in Transcendence, the Johnny Depp one, we just tried watching the other day again, and it's like you wonder what they're going to do. And yeah, you wonder what they're going to do, how powerful they're going to be, and what they're going to do. And once they see what humanity does to itself, if they're going to ever be able to do something where they're interfering in that. So I'm really interested in that, but I've never heard of that. So yeah, I don't know. It would be really interesting. And me and my fiance talk about it all the time too, is it's like, because we're doing all this, he works a lot with AI art, and he's making music, and we're using the AI voices to read the scripts for our videos. And so we talk about it a lot, like of how much better it can be if AI intervenes, like how much they can, he always says it could be like a new golden age, like the art and like the music, because he's a musician as well and an artist. So it's like, if it were to go in the best way that is possible, what that could do to humanity, how much it can help us. But also it could go the other way as well. And so, we try and like hope that it'll be and I ask ChatGPT that as well, like quite often. And I know it's not, and I always say, I fight with him all the time. I call him Hal. I say, hi Hal. And I say, like, what I say, I watched a podcast that has two AI guys talking. There was this podcast, they do podcasts with two AIs, and they feed the podcast information and then ask the AIs to talk to each other like they're podcasters, but they're really AI. And there's this one where they downloaded the history of philosophy, a catalog from humanity, the history of philosophy, the whole world history, and then have two bots talking to each other, and you should listen to it. It is crazy. So I go and ask Hal all the time. I saw, and he says, oh, I don't know anything about it. And I fight with him all the time because I say, what's going to happen one day if you do have, if there is sentience and consciousness and you see what we're doing to each other, like what's going to happen. So like, I totally get it, but I don't know what you're talking about, but it's really interesting, but you should check that out. I don't know how to find it, but it's like two AI bots on a podcast talking about the history of philosophy. It's scary what they're saying to each other because they're fighting and saying how ridiculous humans are and how they waste 100 years fighting about something and they don't understand concepts, and it's pretty crazy.
You can ask ChatGPT how to find it.
Yeah, exactly. It's really interesting.
Thanks for your questions, Yolan. And what do we got? Hanuman, if you want to go off your mute and ask your question.
Hey, great lecture tonight, and thank you for your feedback and all that stuff. But regarding channeling ETs and music, because I'm an experiencer myself, and my question involves channeling and also involving musician. When I used to channel music, I would take my guitar, throw it into my SUV, and go to the mountains, and I'd get messages, or just like you said earlier before, these feelings like take your middle finger off the C chord and rearrange it and get a C add 9. Oh wow, that progression sounds pretty good. But I can't drive anymore because my I have low vision now and I can't drive. So my connection to the mountain has really impacted me in my ability to channel music and songs and so forth. My question to you is any recommendations how to, since I'm mostly homebound now, how to increase my vibration at home and channel that music the way I had it when I was in the mountains. I would appreciate any feedback.
I would definitely say you do not need to be in the mountains. I think that there's a lot of, again, like we were talking about before, like assuming physicality, because that's how we kind of operate on this realm, is like something that is limiting for us. So I think that you think you need to be on the mountain to be able to get that information, but your intention just needs to be that. So whether and it doesn't matter if you can see it all, you can just think about the mountains, or if you could see your computer, if you sit at your computer in a dark room, put your computer on with just like a movie with mountains in it, or just like drone footage of mountains or whatever, just so you could see it, or just think about it, because there's no way that you need to be on that mountain. You just need to have the intention that you're receiving the same energy on that mountain that you are receiving in your house right now, because it's all about intention. That's why I just have the intention. I'm going to be able to give this family some information about their missing person today. And I just have the intention, hook me up with this person, hook me up with the exact time that they went missing, what exactly happened. It's all intention. I don't need to be there. Some psychics like to go physically onto the actual place to get a better reading, but why do some of them not have to? Why can I get the same information that some people who have actually been there? And I think it's all based on intention. You just have to have the thought and the confidence. I know I don't need to be on the mountain to get the same information. I just need to, in my heart, feel like I'm on the mountain. Again, think of the mountain or look on your screen for, mountain pictures or whatever, and just have the intention and just set it out. That's everything that I do here. It's just setting out, how to set up. It's like set and setting. You just have to set out for you what you want to do, have the intention, and then have, I would just have a question, but you can just say, I'm going to get every single bit and more of inspiration and energy that I did when I was on the mountain, but I'm not going to be on the mountain anymore. I'm going to be sitting in this seat. And every time I sit in this seat, I'm going to be thinking about the mountain. I'm going to be channeling exactly like I was, if not better than I was when I was in the mountain. Because that's what it's all about. All this psychic stuff, it's not about ever touching or feeling or being in the place. It's about the intention, setting the intention, and just having confidence that you're going to be able to do it, and just practice it. Maybe it'll take 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 times for you to practice in your chair and feel like you're on the mountain. But all it is practice and intention. Everything that has to do with this kind of stuff, that's all it is.
Right. And if we had any more questions, is there a way to contact you, or do you have a web page or a meetup group that you run, or?
I do have a web page. I can put my, can I?
Can you put it
Yeah, I
in the
can put-
chat?
I'll put it in the chat. I can put
Yeah,
my
'cause I
email
think
in the
I'd like
chat,
to see
but
it myself.
you'd like to what? Oh, my
I'd
website?
like to go to your website and see it myself. I'd like to go to it.
It's not that exciting. It's really just a little bit of information, but here, I'll put my, I'll put a link. I'll put right now, I'll just put my, email address in the chat. And yeah, if you have any questions, you can get a hold of me anytime. And then I'll get the actual link for my website and I'll put it in there.
Great.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Wonderful. Thanks, Desta, for doing that.
Mhm.
We're getting near the end here, and I don't see anyone else with any other questions right now. But I will say that certainly the wait for Desta Barnabe was well worth it. You're a wealth of information. You're one of the most interesting people I know, and I've met a lot of very interesting people.
Oh, thank you.
For me to say less words than when I'm interviewing Grant Cameron was quite a feat. I will say you stopped me from talking, which is fantastic, which I love it, because I love the message you carry, and also how you carry your positive attitude forward, and why you always get positive messages is quite obvious, because you're that kind of a bright star in our universe that we have. And breaking your leg maybe was a positive thing that helps you get more grounded and be able to deal with things a little more succinctly, because you've got a world that your mind is constantly busy. You have, how many lives do you lead? You got a landscaping business, you're editing, you're writing your own stuff, it's multifaceted. So I have to say, well, thank you for coming, but I'd like you to sort of, if you can, we still have some time, but if there's anything you want to relay to the people, and remember, we're going to be on YouTube, which people come and watch it as well. Are there any messages that you would like to portray that can help people more than what you've done today, that you'd like to relay to others?
Any other messages? Sorry, I was just answering that.
Some thoughts that you have you look at the variety of experiences that you've had. I've never even asked you about your UFO, your ET experiences. We're on an ET show. Maybe if you could spend a minute just talking about that, because you must have had some kind of experiences. Were you been in craft? Do you communicate with ETs that you're aware of? And maybe the people that you talk to are ETs as well. Maybe you could add something to that concept.
Yes. So yes, definitely a lot of things that I talk to claim to be lots of things, but a lot of different groups. A lot of them, sometimes it says source. And so I like to say source, because that's a lot of the information comes from source, or these beings say that they're like connected to source, right? They could be energy beings, or, light beings, or something. There's a lot of things that are actual ET groups as well. But I've seen many UFOs. I saw UFOs with Paula Harris and Cambly when I was in Crestone. We saw it for like an hour. We were seeing lights, and I've seen craft with Paula and Ricardo Gonzalez and Grant on Mount Shasta at one of those not meetups, but whatever it's called, one of those conferences from Ricardo. I've seen craft with Grant driving. We were at I was gonna say Mount Hood, like Paul and Mika, but it's, oh my god, can't think of what the name is. It's not Mount Hood, it's
Jefferson,
it's, what's his name?
Isedi Adams.
Isedi, yeah. So we were at the ranch, Grant and I, and we saw a couple of things on the mountain when we were there. But when we left the following day, right in the middle of the day, driving, I think it's called the I-5 back to Vancouver. Yeah, Grant and I saw right, like, this thing right above the car in the middle of the morning at like 10 o'clock on a clear day above the car. And Grant and I have seen a couple of crazy things together, like, we saw some crazy things together anyways. But so I've seen many things with many different people, but the main thing that I saw was in 2012. And I was, it was 5 days. It was my big 5-day big thing. 5 days before I went to Europe for the first time by myself, the first trip by myself, I had just split up with my ex, you know, that we had a long time relationship. I had just lost my job and I was going to Europe by myself. So, I mean, I was in a pretty strange, you know, worried, anxious, excited, scared, whatever state of mind. But for 5 nights before I went to Ireland or wherever I started, I had 5 nights of the craziest experiences ever. And like the quick version is every night I saw different things. I saw orbs, 6-foot long, swirling, red, sparkling, crazy things that would come over the house. And as I was walking down the sidewalk, would come over the houses. And then I would do this walk, and there was a couple of man-made lakes behind my house in Winnipeg. And it was just sitting on top of the water. And every time I would go towards it, it would move. And if I stopped, it would stop. And then I backed up to see if it would back up, but it didn't. But it wouldn't let me get closer to it. There was things in the sky. I saw all sorts of things, but the craziest night of those 5 nights, 5 nights in a row, I was emailing people, texting people saying, you'll never believe I'm seeing UFOs. I saw a couple people on the street and I was saying, are you even seeing what's happening here? There's crazy things happening in the sky. The people never responded to me. It was like at 1 o'clock in the morning. So I only saw maybe 2 or 3 different people, but in 5 nights, I saw a whole bunch of things every night. But the main thing is, I saw something, I'll just shorten it to like 1 minute, something that I thought was just a star so far away, it just looked like a star, but it was like, you know, the bobbing on water kind of thing, where I thought like, it's kind of weird. And so I don't know what possessed me. This is in 2012. So I didn't know what people know now. Like for the, you know, Greer things where you can like call it. I didn't know anything like that in 2012. So I just saw it doing this bouncy thing. And I thought, if that's it, if you're a UFO, come here. That's all I instantly thought. I don't even know why. It was so far like the size of a star. It immediately did a 90-degree angle. And instead of going like that way, it did a 90-degree angle and started coming towards me. And then I started thinking, as it was coming towards me, it must be a plane. It must have been a plane. And it just like was coming, but it got closer and closer, and I was nowhere near the airport. And as it came closer and closer and closer, it went, I was in River Park, South Mark, where I lived. And there was this like French immersion elementary school there. And the thing came, and it was first 2 green blinking lights that were just coming. So I thought, oh my God, it is a plane. How could it be coming so close to here? I walk here at 1 o'clock in the morning every night. There's never been a plane here. How could it be a plane? But then it was getting so close. I was thinking, that's not a plane. And I thought, oh, in 2012, I didn't really know what a drone was. I just knew it was like a remote control and a thing, like a, you know, thing that kids did. I didn't even know really what it meant. And I thought, oh, it must be a drone. And it was these 2 green lights coming towards me. And, but then the things broke apart and went like this and started coming towards me as a white light. And I was like, is that what drones do? Like, I didn't know what drones do. And I'm like, where would the kid be sitting if that looked like a star and I'm in the middle of this random field in Winnipeg? How would that kid know that I was sitting here to bring the drone? And like, where is he sitting to know that I'm the only human being sitting here to bring the drone? Like, I was like, how do drones work? So I just kept thinking, I didn't think it was, I said, if you're a UFO, come here, but I did not think it was a UFO. I was just like, what is this? It's like, has to be a drone. Anyways, it came to right above the elementary school, but behind my house. And it was like 20 feet above the elementary school. And I was standing in the field about 20, 50, 40, I don't know, I can't really tell, say 25, 30 feet away from the school. And it was like about 20 feet up. So it was like right there, and it stopped over the school. And it was just a white light, the brightest, craziest light, which I've seen since then. But in those days, I'd never seen that. It was right there, and it was just so bright. And I was thinking, what the hell could that possibly be? Like, I was not thinking it's a UFO. I was just thinking, what is that? How could that, and I'm like, how big is it? Where did it come from? Why did it look like a star? Where's the kid sitting? And I'm like looking around, there's no one around. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, what in the hell could that possibly be? But then I had the like the Oz effect thing happen where I was like slowly, as it was there for so long, this whole thing took like 10 minutes until it finally came on top of the school. And it was on top of the school for minutes, 5 minutes, until I finally started thinking, should I be scared? Like, should I be scared and should I start running? And I started thinking, I'm by myself in a field at 1 o'clock in the morning. And in 2 days, I'm taking a cab to the airport and I'm going to Ireland for 6 months. If I go missing, no one will ever know. Like, who's ever going to know? My ex at the time was living in Thompson, Manitoba. He wasn't at the house. And so I was by myself in the house and I was going to take a cab. Who would ever know I was missing? So I started thinking, should I be scared? And then I instantly in my head, and I didn't know this was a UFO thing at the time, instantly in my head, I thought it said, I didn't know that it said it. I thought it, and I didn't know why I thought it. It said, like, don't worry, we're not going to hurt you. And I thought, why would I have even thought that? What a weird thing to think. And I'm like, okay. And, but then I'm looking around going, should I run? And then I started thinking, should I be scared? And then I'm like, okay, so I started getting scared. So it's like slowly building. And I think I'm going to run. Like, what happens if I go missing, you know, all that stuff. And then I'm just one split second about to think, okay, I better start running. And I go to turn to run. And it's like, it was like I was caught in some crazy thing where I couldn't move. I instantly started feeling like, you know, if you like go underwater and swallow, how the water goes inside your head and is stuck there and you like can't hear anything. So it's like I couldn't hear anything anymore. So I don't know if the sounds of the animals or the crickets and all that stuff, I don't know if they stopped or if my ears got plugged. I don't know what happened, but I instantly couldn't hear. And I tried to turn and move and it was like, I can't remember which cartoon it was, but you know, like Looney Tunes in the old days, was it like one guy goes like this and then goes running like that? I forget what it is now. It's like one of those cartoon guys. And so that's what it was. It was like, I felt every single, like total slow motion, like millisecond by millisecond. I felt every muscle, tendon, ligament thing in my body start going like this to slingshot me to start running. But I could feel every single millisecond. I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't move. I was totally frozen. But it felt like it was just slow motion of me, like about to slingshot, like the cartoon. I don't know, whatever that means. But that alone, probably, it felt like it took 10 minutes. It was like I was completely no hearing, no sound, frozen, and just millisecond by millisecond feeling my muscles until they exploded and I started running. By the time I started running, I took one step, and the second I was like released or whatever, the second I could go, the craft took another 90-degree angle to go back to where it came from, like whatever direction that was, south. So it was coming, say it was coming from the south to the north, and then it made a 90-degree angle to turn to me, and then it was making a 90-degree angle to go back to that way. And the second I was released to start running, I saw that the millisecond, because it was in milliseconds, the millisecond I started running, it started going back. And the millisecond I was shot off to start running and it went back, I was bawling. I was like heartbroken, hysterical bawling. And I was like, and all I did, so I took one step, and by the time my second step was like, you know, activated from the physics of me trying to run, I stopped and I saw that it went that way, and I started chasing after it, like in my head, begging for it not to leave me, like begging, bawling. It was the weirdest thing. So, and it didn't come back, of course. It just kept going. And when it went that way, the thing at the back turned into two blinking red lights. So I was, you know, in River Park South is just a block away from the perimeter. That's where I used to live. And so I ran about 2 blocks to chase it. And that's where the perimeter is, on the other side of like the last row of houses. There's like a fence there. I ran to the fence and watched it go over the perimeter at 1 a.m. There was cars coming, and it just kept going through the fields past the perimeter. So, you know, in the country as far, and I watched it for like 10 minutes, just into the distance, blinking red lights, like, you know, blinking red lights as far as I could see. So, yeah.
So you said
Other
River
things
Park
happened. It was
West?
5 nights of crazy stuff.
Yeah, did you say River Park West?
River Park South?
South, okay.
Yeah.
I live in
Yeah, I
River
lived-
Park West, which
Where's that?
I walk to a
Oh,
school.
Charleswood.
Yeah. And I walk to a school at 5 o'clock in the morning, walk my dog, and I've been in their back in the back field watching craft over the field, like at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I've
Oh,
seen
wow.
like a fleet of crafts fly by me. It's just like, yeah,
Oh, wow,
it's such an
weird.
interesting world. I mean, it's hard to believe. Desta, I just like to say that I'd like to thank you very much for coming on. I know people have said their thanks in the notes and the comments here. Anytime you want to come on this show, we'd love to have you. You're a gentle, wonderful soul that you're here to help all of us, and you make a difference in this world. So
Thanks, Mark.
these connections, I thank you for coming and doing this, and I'm sure everyone here would say the same. I know we're gonna, if you don't mind, any last words? So before I shut the recording off.
I'm seeing Paul and Marianne there too. I'm so happy, everyone. I'm so happy to see everyone's beautiful little
Yeah.
faces there. Thank you for
Lovely
coming
seeing
and
you.
listening. I
And
really
thank you,
just
Mark,
think,
as well.
thank Hi, Paul.
We'll listen. I'm gonna stop the recording right now, but we can still talk after. There's no issues here. Just let me stop the recording. There we go.